Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we're doing a discussion video going a little bit deeper on two archetypes that just recently got support from dual terminal, from the old dual terminal archetypes and the new terminal world set in the OCG. So we're talking about ice barriers and we're talking about infernoids. Just a little discussion about where I actually think they land. We did the news video. We talked about like the cards as they came out and like reacted to them in initial thoughts and stuff. But I've had a couple days to look at, take it in a little bit further, look at what the archetypes actually already have, and also I've seen a little bit of like dual replay videos of, some of those channels that do early testing with like stuff when it comes out. It's never a sure thing. It's never a definitive proof of like how good a deck can be, because there may be some things slipping through the cracks. And things are subject to change from those videos, but I do think it can give you a good base level of power that you can expect from the archetypes. So let's start with Ice Barrier. Starting off with what they got their 4 new cards. The new Synchro is actually quite a good piece for them to take advantage of. The deck definitely tries to churn him out as often as possible. This guy may be the single best card they got. He's actually an insane engine card. He is an extender. He reborns another monster. So like he is a free extender onto the field. Then he reborns something. He's a level 6 tuner. And then he has a floodgate effect that says your opponent cannot activate any monster effects in graveyard. That is pretty strong when we think about how many decks need monster effects in the graveyard. Not every deck does, but like this is one of those cards where I'm like, huh, what counters Unchained? Now I don't think this deck will have a power level quite high enough, but this is a card that like maybe gives this deck an okay matchup, all things considered. This card also very nice. This card is an insane like combo piece for them. Not only that, but like just when it's generically sent to grave, it adds any Ice Barrier card from deck to hand. That's insane. So just generically foolishing this just makes foolish a Rhoda. Very, very good. And then you obviously have the new Trap. This is maybe a one-of. This is probably the most underwhelming card of the support here, but like there's a world where it's a one-of that you can search and have it add to your end board. We'll see. And then as far as the stuff the deck already has that I think is the most noteworthy, the first one is Medallion. This card just makes it so the deck is going to be consistent no matter what, pretty much. Not super consistent, but it helps a lot. This is a non-once return Rhoda, which means this is a Rhoda where if you open 2 of it, you probably have a combo. That's pretty cool. Pretty good. Warlock is crazy. This is probably a one-of in the deck, because if you get it set up turn 1, you're pretty much have a you don't even need the side deck anti-spell fragrance, because your deck's engine sets up its own anti-spell fragrance. This card is very threatening, not fun to play against, but pretty good for the archetype, to be honest. Revealer, this is probably the best normal summon in the deck. It just summons an Ice Barrier from the deck. It's pretty good, especially since we now have even better tuner targets. Hexa, this was a card that felt really underwhelming. I will say, when it initially came out, I was like, okay, it's cute, I love the design, but it kind of underwhelmed with what it was able to do for the archetype. But now that we have a monster that when it's generically sent, it Rhodas, it just makes this card Stratos now, right? Because you just normal this, send her Stratos for something else, and if you do something, if you're able to get something that reborns her, then boom, you're even further, because she's able to tribute something to get like a bunch of tokens and start synchro climbing. It's really good. And then Raiho. Raiho's the other floodgate to mention with Warlock. Whenever your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, they have to discard a card to allow their monster to resolve. Otherwise, their monster effect will not resolve. A lot of decks can't start breaking a board until they actually start like doing things first. They have to get things going, and that means they will like lose their entire hand advantage just by trying to get things going at all. And so this card I actually think is pretty good as well, especially since his stats are decent too. So like Warlock's problem is you do worry your opponent can just go battle phase and walk over him. This guy's a little bit bigger than that. Not as easy to clear by any means. So very, very cool to see. I like that a lot. And the last thing is, don't forget the Synchros. That's the old Synchros the deck already has. So classic Trish and Briannak for removal can definitely be good, and Gungnir as well. But I also thought I wanted to throw this one in here because this card never existed when Trishula had, or when Ice Barriers came out really over their history. But now that the deck actually has some playable tools, this card could actually be made a little bit more often, especially if you're summoning it off of the float effect of their new Synchro. So pretty cool. Keep all that stuff in mind. Here's where I think the deck ends up because of all of these things. I think the deck actually does have rogue potential. I do think the consistency is there because now this card's a starter, this card's a starter, Medallion is a starter. You actually have actually some decent extenders now. Gorgeous is obviously insane. But also they have another card that I think came out in the structure deck as well. It like summons itself if you control an Ice Barrier, and then Engrave, it just banishes itself to just give you an Ice Barrier token. So it's actually, you have a couple of decent extenders. Now, I don't think the deck's insane. I don't think the deck's like particularly great at playing through interaction, but I think it's a deck that's going to have enough consistency. I think it's a deck that has, you know, some extenders. So like paired with board breakers can definitely have a chance at least playing going second. Obviously, those are the bigger weaknesses though, like playing through interaction. I don't think the deck is super resilient, but I also think going first, it could be pretty insane. I mean, imagine if like Tier Limit comes back, but this is just a deck that like if you win the die roll, you end on Gorgeous, and he just says your opponent gets no monster effects in Grave. I don't know if Tier Limit can play like literally at all if you plop this guy on the field. So it's going to have some matchups where it just absolutely decimates them if it wins the die roll, but I still think it sits in that rogue category. But to be honest, a deck like this that relies almost entirely on Floodgate-ish effects probably should be rogue at best and no more. So I'm actually okay with that. So I'm happy that it's actually made it to like playable status. It's a deck that actually does stuff, because Ice Barrier's like really never been able to even hit that level. I'm happy to see it. Then for the little more exciting one, Infernoids. Infernoids already had a better setup than Ice Barriers by far. This deck has actually had multiple times where it's been like a legit good deck in the game competitively, and they get a couple of interesting cards. I think they're all interesting. I think this card's by far and away like the best one. This card reads like a custom card, and if Instant Fusion ever came off the ban list for more copies than one, this card would be absolutely bananas. But yeah, this card says if it's sent to the graveyard or banished, add a Void Spell or Trap. So again, if you could play extra Foolish Burial, you could potentially play certain engines that let you send cards from your extra deck to the grave, and this like just gets your engine going anyway. Very, very strong, and it's even pretty good at filling up your graveyard if you are able to fusion summon it the hard way as well. So that's very, very cool. From there, you move to Infernoid Flood, a really good new Link 4. It's a pretty good boss monster, but the question when this card came out for me was like, I don't know if Infernoid spammed the board enough to make you want to put all of your investment into this card, and that'll come up again in just a second. That'll make a little more sense. And then you have this card. This is like a in-archetype card destruction. It's pretty interesting, actually. This one, I'm on the fence. This one's going to come down to like what variants actually have the most legs on whether or not this card could actually be legit playable in the deck, but we will see. It definitely has potential. And then this card is a cool recovery card. It's not a bad card, but it's you know, it's not a crazy card. It's like a nice card for the deck. We'll just call it that. And then like all the Infernoids, we should already know what they do. They like banish each other from grave to summon themselves. They're all walking DD crows, so they do have some really good attributes to them for sure. But they've had like some problems with consistency in the past, and they've also had problems with like, do you really want to go first with Infernoids, because they seem to be a little bit more tailored to go second. But the cool thing is, not only is this deck getting its own support, there's a bunch of other avenues of support coming for the deck as well. The biggest one is probably Snake Eye, because this deck is all revolving around like searching and summoning like level 1 fire monsters from the deck. If you don't know, Infernoid's main monster is Decatron, a level 1 fire. It's not even once a return. I think that's one of the most insane things that's going to be a factor in the deck, because we have stuff like Muckraker of the Underworld now. We've got the Snake Eye engine. This guy just searches a level 1 fire, so like he can just search Decatron. The Sinful Spoils engine, or the Diabellstar engine, whatever you want to call it, they have just a straight up spell that says special summon a level 1 fire from deck. Boom. Decatron's not once returned. So like if you can get it out of the deck without even using your normal summon, you can like potentially search another one and normal it. You can Muckraker one back. Like you're going to be triggering Decatron up to like 3 times a turn on a lot of turns, which is absolutely insane. Not only that, but I've seen people mess around with Dark Worlds because they actually just add like a nice assisting engine that puts bodies on the field, gives you potential draw power, and it's just a good assisting fiend engine. This could be one of those engines that kind of helps you add spamming to the boards. That way you're able to make the Link 4 a little bit easier, because it only needs an Infernoid monster, not like multiple, so it just needs one. You could put any Link 3 plus this guy into, or plus an Infernoid into this guy, so that's like the cool thing. And I think just Dark Worlds can help you Link climb a little bit. And then there's definitely going to be some look at the Lair of Darkness version. I've already heard people talking about the Lair version being the best version, but we're also sitting here looking at Phantom Nightmare expecting more Snake Eye support. So there's a world where the next wave of Snake Eye support makes Infernoids look even nicer paired with them, and you just can't ignore the synergy, and you have to like play that version. We're going to see. I think this deck has a lot more potential as far as higher end competitive ceiling. I think this deck has legit tier 2 potential. We'll see. I mean, even if depending on how good the Snake Eye support could be, maybe we could even be looking at a tier 1, tier 1.5 deck, depending on where the format ends up. And like, you know, Infernoid is one of those decks that has very particular attributes to it, so it does need decks that like don't appreciate DD Crows in the format. You know what I mean? So if there's a bunch of decks that don't care about DD Crow, then like, I don't know exactly how amazing they're going to be, but still, I still think they have some really cool potential. So for me, their potential is upwards near like tier 2, maybe even tier 1.5, depending on what the next wave of Snake Eye support looks. But they honestly look like a really cool, like, high rogue to tier 2 deck going forward for me. So it's very, very cool. I'm very, very excited for these guys. I'm actually picking up both cores just to have. I collect like all cores anyway, so like, you know, it'll be nice to have. I never collected Ice Barrier because like I didn't know what mattered, because the deck was never even like a cohesive playable deck, but that's a whole other story. So yeah, I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, let me know your thoughts down below relative to where I'm at. Let me know what you think about Ice Barriers and Infernoids going forward with this new support. Where do you think their potential is? Where do you think they'll land? Do you think Ice Barrier could even be better than I said? Do you think it's not even rogue considerable? And then Infernoids, do you think they have a higher ceiling than I said? Legit tier 1 potential? Or do you think they're just going to be on that rogue level? Let me know your thoughts down below on that stuff, guys. I'd love to hear it. I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more discussion videos and news updates down the line. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.